Ready? Hi, I'm Jon Lovitch. I'm standing here at Gingerbread Lane at the Maryland Science Center. It's going to be competing for world's largest gingerbread village here in about 2 weeks. The record presently is 494 square feet, and this one here is 700. So we should easily set a new record here really soon. And we're going to point out some of the more fascinating parts of the village to you, and then we're going to show some of the highlights to you, and we're going to have to kind of yell because at any given point we have between 10 and 100 of our closest friends nearby watching, and the acoustics in this room aren't exactly library-like, so we'll do our best so you can hear us. But we'll start out here on this side here. We got the Snowman Apple Cider Company and the Gingerbread Lane Fire Department. Fire department, as you can imagine, in a town made of about 3,000 pounds of icing, candy, and sugar. Very important to have a fire department because this thing's a wee bit flammable. So there is indeed a fire department, and the fire department actually tells you how many villages I've made. If you look right there, it tells you engine company number 38. That means this is the 38th village, and I've since made that number all the way to 40 with Hartford and Orlando. So that number just keeps on growing. So from there, we have the Snow Shovel Repair Company. If you have to shovel things like this all day long, your snow shovel isn't going to last, so we've given the people here in the fictional Whoville a snow shovel repair company so they can always keep their snow shovels functioning. Very, very, very important thing.
In general, the stats, how many things?
Absolutely. Yeah, so inside the village you have about, give or take, 300 pounds of candy, and then you have about 500 pounds of dough, and about 900 pounds of royal icing. Royal icing is the most important component in the village. It's what holds it together. And as you can see, it gets really hard once it sets up. So royal icing is like by far and away the most dominant part of this village. And then we have candies in the village that are actually from over 12 different countries. We have different gums we use from Japan, Korea, and China. This is one of those gums right here, coffee flavored gum, and it gives you the kind of brownstone look. And then I got these ice cream cones from Quebec City, so very international flair right there in the Maple Creamy shop. From there, we take about 100 pounds of candy and kind of put it around the houses. Just kind of makes it aesthetically look a little cooler, you know, give it some visual appeal, I guess, as it were. And one of the really fascinating things about everything you find within Gingerbread Lane, everything is entirely edible from top to bottom. There's nothing in this village that isn't real. So everything you see here, made out of gingerbread icing and candy. We have absolutely no fake parts to this. And then all kinds of fun stuff that we make out of the icing. This year's carousel, everything on it's made of royal icing. There's absolutely nothing fake about the carousel, and it's just like everything else you find in the village. And I always tell people, if it wasn't for rain, you could make real houses out of this stuff because it gets really hard and it stays really hard, which is a good thing because, and one of the reasons we're at a science museum, one of the things they can teach here with it, gingerbread doesn't like the weather. Gingerbread doesn't like the weather because dough is made of sugar and flour, which don't like what? Humidity. As soon as it gets moist, which you don't realize by walking around in a humid day, but once it gets really moist, the dough starts to fall apart, which is why we use so much icing to hold it together. One of many things they teach with the science aspect of Gingerbread Lane here at the Maryland Science Center. They also teach how a house holds up to an earthquake. They do activities where kids can make houses out of graham crackers, and then they test them out on the earthquake table to see if the house will hold up. A lot of different fun things they do here this year. They're doing things with liquid nitrogen and candy. They're doing things with making your own silicone molds. There's a lot of fun stuff that goes with this. Not just something fun to look at, which it is definitely something fun to look at.
Jon, how did you first start designing gingerbread houses? How did you get into it?
So I actually got into this by accident, I guess you could say. I started doing this in 1994, and I lost a gingerbread house competition. It's called Gingerbread Lane, so I stole the name. And I sought out and just started making small villages. And I was an executive chef for a number of years in the DC area in New York City, and was doing this as something kind of on the side. And I got tired of being a chef, so figured we'd give this a whirl and found out there was a market for it. We're now at science centers all over the country. We have a science center in Hartford, one in Baltimore here, New York City, and Orlando, Florida that are housing Gingerbread Lane this year. And it's a match made in heaven because of all the activities they can do on the side and all the teaching opportunities. And one of the teaching opportunities it has that I haven't mentioned yet is the science, the social study, as it were, of urban planning. We have schools that actually partner with us now throughout the region and use this as an opportunity to teach their students about how to plan a city. What does a city need? A police department, transportation, a school, a fire department, things like that. So it's definitely evolved over the last 24 years to become something more than just something to look at, I guess you could say.
Talk about the ice rink.
Yeah, here we are. This is kind of the main little area where it all happens, the town square, I guess you could say. We have a clock tower, which has the tallest piece in this Maryland exhibit. That one comes in at about 2 feet, 11 inches. And then the hotel next to it, and then the ice rink and the train right here. So a lot of the really fascinating things you have in the village kind of happen pretty much right here in the front. course. I mean, this is where everybody's going to look at it, basically, so you got to put all the fun stuff kind of in one spot. That reaction that young man just had, I want to eat it, that's probably the one we get the most.
A reader just asked, she'll be in Baltimore for Christmas. How long will this be going on?
So January 6th is the last day here in Baltimore, Saturday. That'll be the closing day, so you have plenty of time. The Science Center's open every day, but Wednesday? What's the closing? Monday. Science Center's open every Monday. Sorry, one of my Science Centers is Wednesday. Monday here in Baltimore. So you have plenty of time. You still have about 7 whole weeks to come check it out, actually. Plenty of time.
And did you go over how many pieces of candy and candy canes? And
so we talked about the dough and the icing and stuff. In terms of how many pieces of candy, I mean, it's we don't know how many pieces of candy there are. There are a few things we've guessed at. The jelly beans, the Jelly Bellies, based on how many of those little guys come in a pound, we've actually guesstimated it's about 3,400 just of those. And then the M&Ms, same thing. We've guessed about 4,100. Please don't come and count the one by one because I really don't know. We're just going on average pounds and the amount of pounds we think actually went in here. And then candy canes that line the perimeter. There's about 900 of those candy canes. In addition to the candy canes I put on the houses, in addition to the candy canes we have in other areas. So there's a lot of candy canes. And if you look on the sides here, obviously you can see we've taken it beyond just the top. You know, we've obviously created mosaics out of candy on the bottom. Just this part here on the bottom took a whole week here in Baltimore to create. So even though what you see on the top here, this is something I start in December, which I'll tell you about in just a second. The bottom part here took 5 people 46 hours to create just this bottom part you see, so it kind of never ends. What's on top, I'll actually start for next year here in about 3 weeks. It takes a full year to do this. There's about 453 houses, give or take, here right now with the ones I brought today, and it's kind of a work in progress, I guess you could say, because every time you come you find a house that broke, or there's always a few houses I have at home that broke on the way here, so there's always pieces getting added. So it's always one of those things where every time you come look at it, you'll see something different because A, there's a lot, and then B, we're always perpetually adding things to it to kind of keep it exciting, as it were. And then our goal obviously is the audience that comes to look at it. We want them to have as good of a show in January as you did in November. So every week we're here, every week we're adding, fixing, maintaining, making sure aesthetically it looks good all the way until the end of the season.
Do you snack while you make?
No, I was a chef way too many years to have any interest in processed foods. I'm a fresh food guy. I'm actually going to leave here and drive over to Chaps Roast Beef and get a barbecue sandwich when I leave. So gave them a nice plug there.
So more art than food.
This is definitely more art than food. And one of the ways I maintain the cost of this is almost every piece of candy you see in here is beyond expired, well beyond expired. All these jelly beans and M&Ms up here, these were actually on an exhibit last year in Pittsburgh. So here they are again this year, and I'll probably scoop them up and use them again next year. And we also buy all our candy the biggest shopping days of the year: December 26th, November 1st, February 15th, the day after any major holiday. Once the stores mark stuff 80-90% off to get rid of it, I swoop in for the kill, get as much candy as I possibly can, which is good for sales, not good for a product. So like by the time I use it here, not very good.
Super smart. Well, I know you got some Baltimore-themed things down
There is a little
here.
bit of Baltimore going on, so we've got a couple Baltimore things going on. We did a lot of red brick and gas lamps throughout, like you'd see here in the neighborhood near Camden Yards, of course. And then obviously we put the trolleys in, kind of reminiscent of the old transportation, you know, here in the Charm City. And then we added a few things that kind of give some Baltimore flair to it. Not necessarily replicas of anything you find in Baltimore, but kind of more things that kind of harken to some of the things that people like here in Baltimore, like crab cakes, soft pretzels. And then, of course, to quote the Raven bookstore, kind of giving a little bit of nod to one of Baltimore's most famous residents, the great late Edgar Allan Poe.
And so do you sort of, for every city, you kind of...
Every city gets a few things. I try not to do any replicas, only because we try to keep the village a whimsical fantasy type place. It's something that exists only in a child's mind. The replicas only work out for the adults, and the adults are our target audience. You see right there, right now, if you look and see our audience right there, you see them, the faces, the mouths are wide open, they're pointing, they're loving it, and that's our target audience right there. And they really like the whimsical side. They like seeing Santa Claus and turkey and pumpkins. They don't care about an Eiffel Tower or a replica of M&T Bank Stadium or something. So we try to keep it very whimsical and very fun. That's why we have a unicorn. That's why we have snowmen everywhere. All these sorts of things.
Perfect. So just to wrap it up, this is you just tell people where it is and when it's running until, and how they can see it.
So we're here on the second floor of the Maryland Science Center. Gingerbread Lane is included free with your admission to the Maryland Science Center, and we'll be open every day now until the 6th of January 2018. So please come out and see Gingerbread Lane, learn a little bit about the chemistry of baking, and then enjoy all the wonderful things this museum has to offer.